Mark's remit covers strategy development, research, marketing, communications, e-marketing, content development, customer contact and Northern Ireland projects. His role involves identifying the best prospects for generating tourism to Ireland, understanding the island's customers and working with colleagues to plan effective marketing strategies to deliver growth. He has responsibility for developing the organisation's advertising content and e-marketing assets. Mark also looks after Tourism Ireland's customer response channels and works across the organisation to ensure focus on delivering its Northern Ireland growth remit. Before joining Tourism Ireland, Mark was Strategic Development Manager with Internet arm of Horizon Technology Group. Before that again, he was Head of Research and Planning for the e-business subsidiary of Aircom. Mark possesses a master degree in both psychology and business administration. And I'd like to welcome Mark Henry here this evening. Thank you.
I have to update the photo in the bio. Anyway, good evening everyone. Mark Henry is my name. Yes, Central Marketing Director for Tourism Ireland. And Tourism Ireland is the body responsible for marketing Ireland overseas. You still get the letter in the newspaper saying, I know what Board Fáilte need to do, but Board Fáilte hasn't existed in fact for 11 years now. At home, a lot of you know Fáilte Ireland, who obviously do the domestic marketing responsibility for the Republic. Overseas, that role is Tourism Ireland's and has been since 2002. But we're a cross-border body, so we market the island of Ireland, we market Northern Ireland as well as the Republic internationally. We've been honoured the last 2 years, in fact, to have been awarded the Digital Marketing Award at the All Ireland Marketing Awards by the Marketing Institute. 2 years running, I have to say, we're particularly proud of that. I think that's the first time anyone's won the same award 2 years in a row. Good news is we haven't entered it this year. We've decided to give somebody else a chance instead of monopolising it. We've entered a couple of other categories and there are some judges here, so keep an eye out. But I think here I'm going to talk about, in fact, a lot of the reasons that underpinned why we won that award last year, and in fact building on the work that we've done the year before. And we do like to think that we are leaders in our space, certainly amongst tourist boards. As you'll see, we are, in fact, leaders in Europe in much of what we're doing here. And leaders in terms of engagement with social media, we've really put it at the core of our communications with a view to delivering commercial benefit. And when I was asked for a title for the presentation, I came up with driving real brand value through social media engagement. And I'm going to talk to that, all right? But with hindsight, when I was putting the slides together, I thought, you know what, I could have simplified that. Social media sells brands. And really, that's what I'm going to talk about. And hopefully over the next 30 minutes or so, in advance of any Q&A you might have, and over the course of just 30 slides, give a sense of what we've been at and some of the learnings that hopefully you yourselves can employ in your own businesses as well over the last 3 years that we've been active in trying to engage people in social media and trying to then not just hook them in terms of interest in holidaying in Ireland, but then driving that through to actual purchase and conversion. And yes, social media does sell brands, and I have proof. And the proof is 65%. So we've done surveys over the last few months with our Facebook fan base. We've just finished work in the United States, haven't got the results yet. But we did it here in Germany, and we did it in Britain earlier in the year. And 65% of the fans of Tourism Ireland on Facebook said, since I've become a fan of yours, I am more likely to take a holiday in Ireland. So there is a real commercial benefit. And I want to explain to you how we've got to that figure. Tourism Ireland, as I say, we're active in fact in 22 markets around the world. We have 150 people, approximately 100 of those are overseas, approximately 50 on the island of Ireland between Dublin and Coleraine, because we're north-south. 40 million euros is the approximate marketing budget this year. It's a good sum, no complaints about that. Of course, like all public sector bodies, it's down about 10 million than it was 3 or 4 years ago, but still, it's a very, very decent sum, obviously, and allows us to do a lot of activity, particularly in our core markets. But in terms of brand Ireland, in terms of tourism brand Ireland, there are challenges. We face challenges. Not least of all, of course, that top line there. The visitors to the island of Ireland peaked in 2007. And there were a couple of years of strong decline there. And we saw a good recovery in 2011, slight recovery last year. Our reliance on Britain still pulls us down, and pretty much every other country grew, but we're so reliant on the British market, and that declined again last year. We don't have holidaymaker data for the last couple of years. The Central Statistics Office are working on a bit of a time lag, but getting that to us in the next month or so. But the point is, clearly the brand has faced challenging times. When that dip began in 2008, 2009, we more or less tracked European tourism, because European tourism obviously was impacted by the recession and so on. But since then we've lost share. And we gained a bit in 2011, but we didn't gain any share last year. So what's underlying that? What is the challenge? What is it that Brand Ireland faces that we need to address? And we do a lot of research. It isn't interest in Ireland that's lacking. In fact, interest in Ireland pretty much across all the countries that we look at every year increased last year and has been at very high levels. So this is brand tracking research we've done. The top 4 source markets for Irish tourism: Britain, the US, France, Germany. So there are 15 million, 16 million, 8 million people who say, actually, I have an interest in holidaying in Ireland at some point in the future. Good numbers. And that, in fact, puts us 3rd in France of all the places that French people would like to holiday at all, someplace in the future. Only Italy and Spain are higher in terms of wish list of where they'd like to go. In Britain, we're 6th, in the US, 6th as compared to anywhere Americans could travel to. Germany, 9th. So we're in the top 10 places as a country that people want to come and holiday in from these places. So great news, the interest is high, but clearly the conversion of that interest has dropped in recent years. And we began to dig into that about two years ago to really understand why we'd begun to lose share as opposed to tracking, as I say, a general decline in European tourism that there had been for the few years before that. A lot of it hinges, it seems, on Ireland's image. And we have strengths and limitations here. And in fact, some of our strengths are limitations. So this is the image of Ireland, according to Google. This is Google Images. About 2 years ago, just typed in Ireland. This is what came up. And we did more qualitative research that costs a lot more money, but in fact, this can tell you a lot of what the issues are. Ireland is a green place. It's a rural place. Not a lot of people there. When there are people, they're quite, let's say, old-fashioned. Pubs are there. Pubs up at the top in terms of the experience you can have in the pub. You can get behind and serve. But in the bottom as well, again, it's, rural pubs, deserted places, landscapes, a bit old-fashioned people and some cows and sheep. And indeed, when we did the qualitative research to say, right, what is it about Brand Ireland that attracts these people? Because that image is attractive, but it doesn't get them to convert as well as it did. The qualitative research was clear. It says nature is a key strength. I mean, that is why most people come to Ireland, even if they're just going to Temple Bar in Dublin or a city break in Cork. In fact, most people's image of Ireland is rural, and that's why most people come, and that is a good thing. It's a strength. The people, of course, are a strength. They're expected to be friendly and welcoming, and yeah, we live up to that. Irish culture is pubs and music, and in fact that's pretty much it in terms of perceptions of people. On traditional music I might point out to that, although hey, for some markets it might be you too. But that's the extent pretty much of the perception of Irish culture. Nothing wrong with that, again, those are positives. The Irish pub experience is viewed positively, traditional music is liked. And the perception of ourselves as a place, a relaxed attitude, that's fine. Old world, traditional. Again, that itself isn't a negative. So the quote from the US consumer we did the research with, when I think of Ireland, I think old world. That's fine. Many of us choose to holiday in old world and go to Europe for the old cities and the castles or what have you. And people come here for that. There's nothing wrong with that. But that itself is a timeless thing. In other words, that is true, obviously, pretty much forevermore for Ireland. It's also true next year. It's still going to be there. Ireland is still going to be there in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. Whenever I retire, I'll go there because it's an old country, and the people will still be there, and the pubs and the music will still be there, and that relaxed attitude will still be there. So you know what? It looks like there's some more interesting places to go somewhere else this year for a holiday. Nothing wrong with that. I love that. I'd love to do that at some point in the future. So it's not an image that drives urgency. But also we face a challenge at the final point on this slide in terms of differentiation. one of our British visitors here, a potential visitor, I have a sense of the west coast of Ireland, he's saying, not being the easiest of places to get to. To fly to Dublin and then hire a car, and you can go 50 miles from Edinburgh to somewhere I think will be very similar. And differentiation has increasingly become a challenge for us. Scotland, in many ways, have learned from Ireland. You know, a lot of people say their tourism ads borrow a lot from what we've got to offer. But genuinely, if you're a British visitor and you have to fly or get on a ferry, that's extra cost versus something that, in the perception of Britons, is pretty much what I could have up the road. It's not that different. It's the L'Oreal factor, isn't it? Or is it the whole point about the difference being worth it. So Ireland has a challenge, which is to say the extra expense you're going to incur to get here is worth it. So our conclusions from our work 2 years ago in terms of, okay, what do we need to do to increase that conversion level, to overcome those challenges that there are around Brand Ireland? Not necessarily all negative challenges, but to drive urgency. Firstly, we need to convince people there's a sufficient range of things to see and do, because again, that rural image, so once I've seen the Cliffs of Moher, then what do I do? Another hill, another landscape, people weren't clear they could take a 2-week holiday or a 3-week holiday here. Range of things to do, important. Deeper emotional engagement. So, how do they? So they have a conceptual image that yes, I'd like to come to Ireland at some point in the future, but they don't really feel that Ireland is something that's they feel close to. They really, really want to go and experience sometime soon. So emotion felt is a very important bit of the communication challenge, but vibrancy in particular. So to fill those images from Google in people's minds with people and events and festivals and things to do that really say to people, yeah, Ireland really is good. There's a lot happening. And if I don't go, I'm going to miss that. So these challenges are true of Brand Ireland. Tourism Ireland, of course, as a body, doesn't actually sell anything. There are people in the room, in fact, who are the tourism sector who do this sales. So for us, our philosophy is very much around engagement marketing. In fact, in all that we do. Our philosophy is about winning people's attention, winning the customer's attention for Ireland over anything else that they might be thinking about, whether for holiday destination or, of course, to something else, and keeping that through our marketing activity. So we're about engaging the customer and trying to keep their attention focused on Ireland, win mindshare for Ireland over other destinations. And we do that in a way that aims to talk to their interests in the first instance. So you're not even going to win people's attention if you're not talking to them in a way that's interesting to them, is relevant to their areas of interest. So we're increasingly investing in content and thinking about how we can talk to areas that are of interest to our consumers that may or may not have anything to do with their holiday on the surface. We want to do that, of course, in a way that brings Brand Ireland to life, that makes it relevant for them, relevant for their interests, and encourages them to interact with it and with each other. So people are talking about it, because travel is very much a social decision. It's something you talk about with other people, you go there with others. So talking about it is a very important bit of getting people thinking of Ireland as a holiday destination. And when you look at that, and say, if that's in fact what underpins the philosophy of all of our marketing, social media is designed to deliver that sort of thing. It's designed to deliver engagement marketing. It allows us to target people's interests. It allows us really to bring Ireland to life so much more than many other media. And it's all about engagement and interaction. So back in 2010, we took a strategic decision to say social media offers us a huge opportunity to engage with people. And over the last couple of years, you've seen, when we did that research, you've seen in 2011, we said, you know what, we really need to ramp up here, because this is a means of addressing so much of those challenges that Brand Ireland faces. We're number 2 in the world now in terms of Facebook. That, as of this morning, we had 1.26 million fans worldwide for Ireland. And those are spread across different presences, as I'll show you, because you have to have different languages, of course, and for beginners, but also what let's say an Australian wants to talk about can be very different from a Canadian than a Brit or an American. So you actually, for different geographies, even aside from languages, you need to have a different social media presence. So we've built that up over time, but for us, it's not just the 1.25 million people we have that are friends of Ireland now, but it's the fact that each of those in turn has an average of 220 friends. So if you can get somebody to like, to share, to comment, potentially we're one click away from more than 250 million people. And that's the game that we're trying to achieve. So hence, by going back to the engagement marketing, identifying ways and content that encourages people to share, that engages them, that gets them to take an action in social media, multiplies that message out multifold. So growing our Facebook fan base was very important. There are other social media we're engaged in as well, but Facebook, we believed in 2010, offered us the greatest potential to deliver that emotional engagement and and to visually represent Ireland. So there were having built the audience and invested over that time in building the audience, it's never a done job, there are 5 pillars that really have underpinned the 65%. In other words, underpinned the consumer engagement that has led to people saying, do you know what? Yeah, I actually now want to come to Ireland more than I ever did. And that is about reach, it's about retention, it's about having quality conversations, aligning your channels, and having suitable sales platforms. And I'm going to talk to each of these. And reach, I've already said, is important because you have to speak to people in their colloquialisms, even if that's a language or, as I say, a different culture that Americans might have, different perception of Ireland than Britons have about Ireland. They engage with different things. I did present at an event attached to the Dublin Web Summit there back in November, and before me there was this future guy from Los Angeles from AOL, and the hair of gel was out to here, and using the leather jacket, and I can't slag off the bright shirt, but the point is, he said, it's not all about your likes. Likes something to do with it. It's likes are dead. It's not about that. It's all about what people do and how they engage with you online. And I was like, well, yeah, I agree, but I agree with the engagement. I don't agree that likes aren't important, because we're marketeers, and the likes give you the audience. So building 1.25 million people as of right now is wonderful, because that is the audience who said, you know what, I want to receive communications from your brand every day. That's a wonderful opportunity, and so growing that is important. So for us, reach is important. Obviously, if you go back to the chart, at its peak, Ireland had 9 million visitors a year into the island. So we've a lot of potential to grow to that figure and beyond in terms of the people we aim to influence to come here. So reach is important, and investing in growing your social media audience is important, and we do invest continuously in growing and buying and building that fan base. But actually retention is also really important. And when we first started building and investing in social media, we actually didn't really look at this for a while. And we're going, this is great, the Facebook fan base is up again this month or whatever. And on the left, when we started to look at it, is our GB figures. And so I can't see myself exactly what time period that is. But so 2,500 new fans added, 1.5 lost. So in the same time frame, you'd lost half the audience you'd gained. Well, okay, but you're still net up quite a bit. But on the right-hand side was our Australian one over the same period. And, there's no net gain whatsoever. And so they've been, sitting there going, this is great, we've gained a few more fans this week or whatever, without appreciating that, in fact, we gained a lot more than that, but we're losing as many. So, firstly, looking at retention is really important. And we started to track it then from May, actually, of 2011 to say, hang on, in any 1 month, what is the percentage of the audience base that are actually losing? It started at 27% when we started tracking it. But by the end of the year, we had it down to 8%. And some of what I'm going to talk about in the next pillar was key to doing that. But the point here is, looking behind the data to understand what are the quantitative figures that underpin gaining or losing a fan base, but also then the qualitative. So of course we started to talk to these people, and we started testing all sorts of things to try and reduce that rate of loss. And key to that, really, was the quality of the conversation that we were having. I'll summarize this slide in a minute, but at the very bottom there is the question. So this is the research we did with our GB fan base a few months ago. How much do you like each of the different types of content on this brand's page? And in fact, this is a survey that we did with Millward Brown. They have actually gathered norms for across quite a few different brands. And if I summarize it without necessarily needing to read all the detail there, it boils down to these 5 things in this order. What generates the greatest engagement and the greatest quality conversations for us in social media is imagery. First and foremost, imagery is what gets people hitting that button, like, comment, share, typing something in. Really powerful. Powerful for our product, of course, but powerful versus the other things. And again, the Millward Brown research will bear that out for other brands as well. So secondly, competitions. Yeah, competitions are great. People like competitions. So I'm a fan of yours. I'm giving you permission, basically, to market to me. So from time to time, you've got to give me something back. And, while imagery and all this is important and nice, and, something nice, picture of Ireland on my screen when I come into work every morning, that's nice. But, there is a value exchange that people do expect in terms of competitions. They like our giveaways. And, sometimes, they're great. They're for holidays from America. Yeah, we do that. But, sometimes they're just for, shamrock pins or a guide to, tracing your Irish roots or whatever. They don't have to be big prizes. But competitions, people like them, and so we give them competitions. Product information, and it probably varies by product, but for Ireland, people like to know about what there is to see and do. So, going back to the previous slide, the third thing on the list there, what do I like? I like posts containing holiday information about Ireland. I like posts by Discover Ireland GB. I like events listings. So people actually do want a degree of information. Fantastic, great. They're signing up and they're hungry for that. So that is important and generates, obviously, some quality engaged conversations. But videos are in 4th. And videos, of course, are not as numerous in terms of that versus imagery, but they're a lot more time consuming. People have to click, perhaps once, perhaps click again to get into the thing, have to watch it, have to absorb 2 or 3 minutes, maybe in a work situation, maybe, I can or can't listen to this on the speakers. So there's a lot more energy involved in consuming a video. It's therefore harder to get the click. And of course, you're also then hoping they'll click again at the end with a like or a share or whatever. So videos are good and there's an important role for them, but they don't drive as much quality conversations, in fact, as some of the other things. And last but not least, interaction. In other words, people said, and what I also like is talking to other people about Ireland, or talking to yourselves, because we obviously do engage with the audience as well. So that are the sort of things that we've done. The research says, but it does very much mirror our own experience in terms of the things that we have therefore invested in to drive that engagement, to drive that those conversations. Here's just one post, and it's an image that, you've probably seen this tourism image many times before. Bord Fáilte have used this image, in fact, Bord Fáilte, going right back to the 1980s. But this actually is, as of today, our most successful post ever, as of today. But it's only, last month? So this was posted, simple comment at the top, easy to absorb, link to the website, on our US Facebook page. And the US Facebook page is 440,000 fans at the minute. As you can see on the bottom, there were 25,000 people basically like that photograph. 6,700 shared, nearly 1,000 people added a comment to it. But multiply each of those by 220, because each of those people is 220 friends that then have the potential in turn to see what they've just commented or shared on, So that, to us, is a quality conversation that does the job for us. The image, you might say, it's a bit traditional. How does that relate to your brand challenges? But I'll come back to that. The quality conversations. So part of it is about the nature of the content. Part of it is also about the time of the content and the timeliness of the content. On the left, just some postings we did. In fact, it wasn't even this year, it wasn't last year, the year before for St. Patrick's Day. And, on the right, our contact center. We do outsource some of this to our partners. They're now currently the GEM, or Concentrics are called now in Belfast. And, the point there is Monty Hall's our Great Irish Escapes, where the team were there tweeting at the same time that it was going on in BBC, following the conversations around it and responding to the chats and keeping the conversation going in Twitter, but in Facebook as well. So the timing of the conversation is important to generating the engagement, to generating the quantity of likes and the quality of the comment, and that is the share, and that is the multiple of our effort in terms of consumers talking and sharing the marketing message that we want to give on our behalf. So timing is important, and in fact on a more micro level, as I say, to drop that retention rate that we had, we experimented with all sorts of times of the day of posts and days of the week and so on to find out what worked best. And it varied by market, but what worked best in terms of a timing of a post that's going to get the maximum amount of click-throughs and shares and engagement. So timing is important, and being topical, I guess which is what this slide is about, is also important. And from time to time, innovation. So the year before last, when we won the All-Ireland Marketing Award for digital marketing, a lot of that was centred around the work that we did with Ireland Town, which was the world's first social game for a tourism destination. It was, it wasn't quite Farmville, but it was a very kind of simple sort of thing, where you'd have your town, kind of shown there on the bottom left. You could build up your little village by going out and around the country, taking the bus, very sustainable, to different tourism spots around Ireland. You had to do different tasks, whatever, kiss the Irish, kiss the Blarney Stone, whatever, do different tasks, gather your coins, and then you could go back to your village, and with your coins you could buy your farm and buy your pub and that sort of thing. It was a simple little game that we launched for St. Patrick's Day, say, the year before last, and we spent some money to promote it. 215,000 people played that. They generated 500,000 messages out to say, whatever, Mark Henry has just, kissed the Blarney Stone, click here to find out more. Given the average number of fans people had friends that people had at that point in time, that generated 72 million opportunities to see, in terms of opportunities that were coming through people's timelines, people's walls at that time, into their friends' social presences. So a very significant, in fact, impact for that sort of initiative. I guess that's the power of social. And I guess the point is, trying new and innovative things and trying to be first in terms of some of the stuff that we do, we believe is important in terms of getting that quality conversation going, in terms of doing things and being a fan of Ireland, because in fact some stuff is happening here that I don't see anywhere else. This is a cool page to be following. So the quality of the conversation was key to dropping that retention rate, in fact, and experimenting to make sure we had good quality conversations is key to retaining that audience as we build it. Channel alignment then was a challenge initially. So in other words, what role does social media have anyway in our whole mix? How do we mix that in with all our other media? How do we begin to ensure that it all aligns, all of our media, to generate a buzz? And this campaign is one that our GB team did. They ran a little online competition to have two British people who wanted to be guided around Ireland by fans of social media for a week. So Nick and Sam auditioned and won the trip with their little YouTube video, and so they were sent off around Ireland for a week, guided by social media. So people would tweet and Facebook and say, "Oh, well, if you're here, you must go there. No, be sure to drop in here and see this." And it won an award at the Chartered Institute of Marketing Tourism Awards, Best Use of Social Media in Britain last year. And for us, I guess that was the first step, which was, in other words, about aligning all our digital media. It was still primarily a digital campaign, but getting Facebook and Twitter and digital video, posting that, using that, all coming through the website, using the EDM activity that we had as well, all to kind of drive the following of Nick and Sam. But last summer we went kind of a step further in terms of that alignment when we had a campaign for Escape the Madness, it was called. It was with Chris O'Dowd, where we were trying to get people out of London during the anticipated traffic chaos for the Olympics. So that the metro and all this was full of, it's going to be a disaster, Olympics are going to be absolutely packed and we can't possibly cope with all the influx of visitors, and we're going to grind, the city will grind to a halt. So we were like, brilliant, great, escape the madness. If you're a Londoner, get out and come across to Ireland. In fact, the traffic chaos didn't really happen. At the end of the day, it didn't hugely matter for the campaign, of course, because it was over by then. But they took it to another level here in terms of trying to align all the channels that we were active in. So yeah, paid seeding, and there was an offline element as well in terms of people's metros and so on, as in advertisements in the printed media, but particularly online, using our EDMs to our warm databases. Yeah, paying for search traffic, so people are searching for any of those, Transport Chaos London, whatever, they were directed our way. PR seeding of the video. Chris O'Dowd then was willing to be a voice for us as well, and he got active doing interviews. Corporate PR, which was actually interesting learning for us, that a lot of the initial engagement around the piece came from Ireland, where our Irish people or people who are Irish in Britain who ended up very much sharing the piece with their networks, which was great. Distribution on our own social channels, so using our owned media to drive that as well. Proactive tweeting to celebrities as well, which worked with some good successes. Dermot O'Leary, Radio 2, Radio 1, DJ NGB, 1.2 million followers. He tweeted amongst others. Graham Norton and some others as well. So it was, this point about channel alignment, because of course all those things working together delivers the sweet spot of getting lots of people talking and having that conversation. And it's not just allowing Facebook to sit aside and work on its own. All these things, talking about and driving around the campaign. And it's a model that we're implementing as of today in a slightly different form for the gathering. And if we have time at the end, I'll show you the video that we've just launched earlier this morning. But channel alignment is important to getting the return on investment from Facebook, because they're using it as part of the mix in an engaging way that people can be seeing the ad in the newspaper, might even have had the video sent to them online perhaps, but then they're engaging around it on Facebook, and that itself seen by 220 people every time they comment, they share, they like, and hence the multiple effect. The fifth pillar then, in terms of engaging with that audience and delivering a commercial return, is ultimately about providing a sales platform. And I've underlined, obviously, the word suitable sales platform, because of course, and we've been very cautious about this, when do you put the commercial offering then in front of someone? Because if you're too commercial, then people will just unlike. They are not there for to be sold a heavy duty sales message. We all know we don't go to a friend's dinner party and start immediately talking about what it is we're selling in the day job and how they should really avail it. We've got some great rates, and I just brought my leaflets, and there's one on every table and every chair. You know what I mean? Likewise, social media is a social medium. So quite how you mix the commercial message, we've been quite cautious about. So on the left, for example, it's how some of our early endeavours were on our blogs, which would be repeated and amplified through social. We would start saying, Ireland's landmarks, lodges to lighthouses you can sleep in, which really was talking about the Irish Landmark Trust and their properties, and what they had to offer. On the right, okay, Guinness you can talk about, because Guinness is fine. So Guinness Storehouse, #1 visitor attraction for overseas visitors, great. So we can legitimately talk about that, and that's fine. It is actually a sales message, but Guinness is an international brand. People don't mind that. But we have only really begun in the last couple of months to put bold sales messages into our social media channels. And so this one, as you can see, it's only a couple of days old, on our US Facebook presence, a commercial offer for one of our partners there this year, generating 6,000 likes and 1,700 shares and 200 comments. And that's actually the second or third time we've done that in the past couple of weeks. So, in moderation and in context, they do drive engagement. So, commercial offering at the right place at the right time with an offer obviously that people think is good value, can drive engagement and can click through. And in fact, we've begun this initiative, as I say, this year with our partnership program in the US, with some tour operators, some airlines and that. And the initial feedback from them has been very strong, that the days that we've done these posts for them, they've seen a multiple increase in terms of the click-throughs to their website and conversions from that. So, it is delivering real sales returns to partners. But it's suitable, it's cautious, and it's about finding the right way to do that. Because again, when we ask people, so which of these did you get out of being a fan of our Facebook page, in this case, in Britain? It gives me up-to-date news. I enjoy feeling part of an Ireland community. I enjoy reading other people's thoughts and ideas. It helps me plan my trip. Having it on my profile allows me to show how much I like Ireland. So, okay, at the beginning there, it gives me up-to-date news and offers. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So 2/3 people saying, yeah, that is something I'm interested in. But the bulk of what's there is really about learning and sharing. That's the benefit that people see from being a fan at all. So that's the bit that has to be to the core of what we're all putting out there to drive the engagement. The point is that engagement, and you've seen it's strong in terms of quantity that we've built up over years. It's also strong in terms of the quality that we're generating from the engagement and from the posts we're putting onto social media, is delivering a change in perception. Because of course those people are signed up, not just for one-off, not just for an easing that they might get, once a month or once every 2 months without spamming them too much, right? But they're signing up daily for potential communications from your brand. So thinking of those challenges that we have for Brand Ireland, of course we went back and so we asked as part of the research. So in Britain, 74% of the fans that we spoke to said, you know what, one of the things that I have got a perception of, one way in which my perception of Ireland has changed since I've become a fan of yours, is 2/3 said, 3/4 said, there's a really rich variety of things to see and do in Ireland. 2/3 said, it looks like a really vibrant and happening place. 2/3 said, it offers something different. You can really feel part of the place. So the brand challenges that we'd set ourselves about saying, you know what, we need to communicate the range of things there is to see and do, to really give people a sense they can fill a holiday here. Building vibrancy into the communications, really giving that people a sense of, wow, Ireland just isn't a laid-back rural place, it'll be the same in 10 years' time, I can wait till then. No, there's a lot happening here and now, I've got to go now. This idea of engaging emotionally with people, so people, could really, we're not just some, brand that is up there, in a kind of an anonymous sort of way, but we're really accessible and we're engaging with them emotionally and chatting to them, talking to them about their holiday concerns, all that being delivered through social media. And the evidence is there to show, because 65% of the people who we interviewed have been part of our fan base in GB and Germany, and say the US research due this Friday, said, since I've become a fan of yours, I am more likely to come on holiday in Ireland. So when we first started investing in social media, our chairwoman at the time said to me, this all looks very good, and I see the board reports and your numbers are going up every month, and this seems like a good thing. But is it? Is social media actually delivering any value for Tourism Ireland? At the time I said, look, honestly, there's two answers to this. The honest answer is I don't know. I don't know what the return on investment is, but I do know that to have a communications channel open to engage with people who voluntarily say, I want your marketing communications every day, is a good thing. But now I have the answer. Now I have the research that says, yeah, and 2/3 of those people go on to say, you know what, since we started this is really engaging, it's changing my perceptions, and that change of perception is leading to a change of behavior and increasing that interest in visiting. So hopefully that's given you some sense of our journey, and hopefully there are applications from that for your own. And I'd certainly be happy to take any questions and share those with you in greater depth. Thanks very much.